Andy Fenton,
Happy Friday.
mate. How you going? This feels a bit strange.
It's weird, isn't it? Other than the fact that there's this crazy studio that's around with no people in it.
No people. It's just you and me. It does feel a bit surreal to be in the flesh with you. I don't know where to look, whether to look at you on the camera or look at you in real life. But we're going to give it a shot. Hey, folks. Good to see a few people jumping on. Welcome to a live version of Wealth, Wine and Wisdom on Friday, the 9th of July. Andy escaped across the border. He climbed the fence
I did.
and he's in the land of the GC. So it's awesome to have him here in the flesh, and we can get up close and personal with Andy Fenton. There he is right there.
And there he is. And there I am.
There I am. So good to see you guys. And I think I'm camera 2. Yeah, there I am. Hey gang. We're going to try and do some live switching here and live producing of the show. And we'll see if we can make it work tonight. So hopefully you guys are all awesome and well. So if you can, give us a bit of a shout out in the chat. Oh, yeah, there's a few chats going on, which is awesome. Good to see you guys all there. There's Alison popping on by. As always, good to see you, Alison and James. Shah, how are you? Alison's been hanging out for this topic. Andy, this is a big topic, and it's all over your heating plate today, mate. We're going to dive into it, folks, a bit later on and talk about the world of risk and insurances and what we might need to do about that as property investors, as business owners. It's a big topic.
Huge.
Something that I think we not necessarily avoid, but sort of, don't take seriously enough at the right times. But hopefully we can unlock a bit of that today. We've got a few others there. Michelle, good to see you. James, fantastic to see you as well. And Graham, good to see you too, mate. So we are going to dive into questions later on, team. So I'm going to leave that up there. Questions.
Keep them rolling in.
Yeah, if you have any, put them in the chat. Certainly. We've got a big topic tonight, which is the risk space. So make sure you keep typing into the chat any questions in and around as we go. Oh yeah, someone's on their wine, aren't they? St. Helot. Nice spotting, Josh. Tell you guys a funny story. Well, it is called Wealth, Wine and Wisdom. And so I had a bottle of wine open from last week, and I said to Andy, I've only had a glass of this wine, Andy. Let's just drink that. And Andy looked at me like I had two heads. And I said, come on, mate, it's good wine. It'll be fine. And a little, it wasn't fine. It's vinegar, but I don't know. I'm not very good at this stuff. But Josh, well spotted. A friend of ours gave me this. It's a 2011 Shiraz. And so I thought I'd bust it open for such a auspicious occasion, having Andy live, Wealth, Wine and Wisdom. So
noting he did try and get away with the vinegar first, ladies and gentlemen. I swear, if we'd actually started drinking that bottle of wine, we would have needed my life insurance afterwards. I can tell you, like literally, he's got have a go. Just go on, have a go. It's a good bottle. I put my nose in, I just about threw up. Then he has a little bit of a swig of it. He's like,
well,
nom.
Yeah, I have been called a cashed up bogan once or twice before, and I think I fit it quite well. So there you go.
No wonder you've been waking up a bit dusty. Like if you're drinking wine like that, you're lucky to be waking up at all.
Well, Josh, I think you're going to be our new best friend, Josh. You manage the Qantas wine sales team, so maybe we should connect. We're looking for a new sponsor, Josh, for the Wealth, Wine and Wisdom show. Maybe Qantas could be into that. Let us know, mate. And Graham likes a good Shiraz as well, so that's good to hear, Graham. And evening to a few of you guys. Laura, good to have you. Kalash, Calvin, good to see you guys as well. So
and it's good to be up there. So somebody said, "Welcome to Queensland." It is. I tell you what, it's. I can't remember the last time I took a day off, or at least a couple of days. And so today is a day off. So I'm wearing. I'm not wearing black today. It's for the kite surfing gear and things like that. So The first day of relaxation, I reckon, in almost 2.5 years, ever since COVID hit. It's been a long journey,
mate. It has, yeah, and it's a strange one. The old world of COVID and travel and getting around. So,
mate, I literally booked the ticket yesterday afternoon at about 2:00 to get up here last night because Brisbane's a red zone, which means I have to quarantine for 2 days when I go back. This is an orange zone, which means I need to get a COVID test and self-isolate until I get a negative result. But then because I wanted to go down to New South Wales, so then you got to check New South Wales laws with Queensland and and so everybody's heat map is completely different.
Yeah, right.
You just about need an algorithmic sort of system in order to be able to figure out whether you can actually cross a border or not. And I was sitting there, I was trying to figure it out, like what's going on, how many cases are there, where, am I allowed back in Victoria? And then I thought, well, mate, wouldn't be bad being here doing a few episodes with you for a couple of weeks if I wasn't allowed back. So we'll see how it goes.
No, you're more than welcome. I think we've got plenty of room here in the Whitten compound anyway, so we could find you a place to sleep for the weekend. That's for sure. But why don't we dive into it, and why don't we do a quick round the grounds? What's in the news? And I'll do a little refresher for me, Andy. I did a video this morning on this one, and the rhetoric, there's a bit of rhetoric creeping in about the regulators coming back in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The market's too hot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's a bunch of bullshit. I think that's going to fall on deaf ears for the short term. Certainly in the next 12, 18 months, 2 years. The last time the regulators came in, they made an absolute clusterfuck of the whole thing. And the property market drives a huge amount of Australia's economy. And it's only just getting going again. And I would be very surprised to see the government allow that to happen in the short term. What are your thoughts on that sort of thing in, the APRA of the world stepping in to try and regulate lending? And fair enough, here's the thing. Here's the beat up. I think it's a beat up. It's a bunch of bullshit. We're back at 2-year record highs for lending. Yeah, no shit, Dick Tracy, because we were at 10-year record lows 2 years ago.
Hang on, it's a bit like the pot calling the kettle black, isn't it? Well, hang on, you've just printed $1 trillion. Like, what's going on here?
What is happening?
Don't you borrow, but us, yeah, we can do whatever we want. We're the government. Yeah. Let's load up.
Yeah,
mate. When it comes to policy and lending, I don't know. I feel like the politicians are like a 10-year-old boy. They just can't keep their hands off it. They can't stop fiddling with it. And look, if we just have a look at what happens. So they brought in responsible lending. Then they said that they were going to repeal responsible lending in March. Then they didn't.
They haven't done it. Yeah.
They thought, well, no. So they keep. You can just see it's like they just want to be doing something in that space. And while logically it says to me, no, they shouldn't be doing anything, I don't think they will. I think that we do need to be a little bit careful because you just can't trust them. And so when I say careful, it's good to be able to get people to respond to their members. And when I say members, I mean the dicks in charge of the relative areas, their councils and things like that, is to get on the blower to these people and start to make a bit of a ruckus. And I think that we've actually stopped doing that. And especially, small to medium business owners, I think that we need to be getting out there to our members and start actually getting in their ear about this stuff. Went to mine more recently and actually got reasonable feedback. And I said, you must be getting a lot of this. And he said, no.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? So, folks, here's a bit of a challenge for all of you guys to support, yourselves and other, professionals in this space, either property investors or business owners. We've got to go and shake that tree and rattle the tree and make a bit of noise when it comes to being represented in the marketplace, because at the end of the day, the politicians will only respond to those who make noises and say, I'm not going to vote for you unless you do X or Y for me. So, that's an interesting one when it comes to that sort of stuff. It's a funny old gig, this idea of, regulators stomping around like, bulls in a china shop, because, I was saying to the team this morning, when the regulators and the APRA overdid it, they spanked the banks, which they deserved to get in trouble. They were doing the wrong thing in many places, but then it ended up in a witch hunt somewhere else.
So that's a euphemism of euphemisms, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's not go there, Fenton. This is meant to be PG. Well, at M at least, anyway.
Well, it's after 5 o'clock.
It is after 5 and we're drinking wine. But, the banks were in trouble. They did the wrong thing by a lot of people, and they should have accounted for that. Then it ended up as a witch hunt for brokers to lose their trails. And then it was like, brokers are the ones that aren't responsible when it comes to lending. We need to do reforms. And so it's like, and what happened here? We were looking at the banks and their behaviour and some of the things that they were doing, and then it went, somewhere else. And that's what I was saying this morning. Put your money where your morals are or your values are. Because if you say you stand for something, then don't go and give the money to the banks who are breaking the law and charging people fees in your space.
It's the easiest way, Jace.
It's the easiest way. Yeah, that's the trap, isn't it, in our world?
Yep.
And what happens is actually taking care of your financials and doing the best thing for yourself is actually quite difficult to do. And it's complicated and convoluted and hard and takes time. And
well, the problem with changing policy, though, is even if we go back to, in my world, efficient market hypothesis and efficient market theories and portfolio management, it all comes down to allowing things to take their natural course, which means stop interfering with the way that things are operating, because what naturally will happen is there will be a natural arbitrage. So gaps open, people monopolize those gaps, but then that gap disappears. And eventually it will revert, right? It'll normalize over time.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is when governments come in and try and make policy all of the time where they see things starting to sort of heat up, well, they miss the end where the nature takes care of itself and rectifies itself, and the natural arbitrage finishes.
Yeah.
And then the next train goes. And what they do is they come in, they over-regulate, and then they just blow everything up because they create new loopholes in different directions. And then guys like we just go, okay, boom, and then it takes us 6 months to figure it out, probably costs us an arm and a leg, and when we survive it, we're now pointing in a different direction. We're going, okay, well, there's the gaping hole that you've left that we found, and now we're going to monopolise that. And then they come back 5 years later and they go, well, you're doing the wrong thing over there. So they don't allow things to take their natural course and reach, an equilibrium with the market.
Yeah. Well, mate, what's in the news for you on your side of the tracks? For me, that was probably the most poignant thing at this point this week for me in the news, other than, Canberra being the most expensive place in Australia to rent. It is now the most expensive place in Australia to rent, over and above Sydney. And,
wow.
It's going along. Funnily enough, Darwin and, a couple of the smaller places, their rents have grown over 20% in the last, I'll get you the stats.
Would you know? Well, let me ask you this one, because you're the property
guy. In the last year.
Who's got the lowest rates now in Australia?
The lowest rental rates?
Yeah, cities.
Well, Melbourne. Melbourne's the lowest. Yep, the lowest rents. And
we got there.
Boom.
We're the best at something.
And arguably, Melbourne's yields were always low. They were never attractive rental yields. For 20 years I've been investing, Melbourne's rental yields were always 1% behind Sydney. They were 1% behind everywhere else. And Melbourne actually has had very good capital growth. And I think, often the places that get a bit more capital growth,
well, they
outstrip the yields, So
you look at greater Melbourne, Abbotsford, East Melbourne. I mean, you got multi-million-dollar townhouses that are just, they're absolutely everywhere. Been there for 100 years, will be there for another 200 to come.
Well, arguably, and that's it's interesting. You jumped onto that one, folks. Listening in, to chuck it in the chat. I know there's a few of the keen property positive team there. What would be a benefit right now for us as property investors? And we say, all right, well, Melbourne's the lowest rental yield of Australia's capital cities. What would be an opportunity, or what could you guys see right now in that sort of space while Andy and I sort of continue to chat here? Because I've got an opinion on this one, and I think it's at number 7. at the lowest because it's actually equal with Adelaide, but Adelaide's actually gone up. Melbourne went down. So there you go, equal with Adelaide. But there's an opportunity in there for me, and Melbourne is artificial, is where it's at right now. But it's an interesting one.
It would be great for Melbourne if it stayed low for a while, because it reminds me of when I first got into finance. Oh God, was it 22 years ago now? And so this is to help the viewers out a little bit. And I was with Macquarie, and our head office at that point in time, we had a head office in Sydney, but most people were working in Brisbane. And there was a key reason for that. Yeah. And I think it's what you're alluding to. Yeah. So if it stays low enough for long enough, then it can create some really great opportunities, and we need it.
For this sort of stuff. And Alison put it there, skilled migration, right? Yep. That's excellent. Nate's saying, it's a capital growth city, not for rental growth. And maybe part of your strategy is if you're going to go, you mix it up, you mix and match. You get a couple of cities for yield and you get a couple of cities for growth. But you hit the nail on the head, Alison. I like that. When it comes to a positive for that, it's a very big functional city. It is going to be the largest city Australia has. And if those rents are a bit lower, it will attract that job, skilled migration. Ultimately, I believe that will kick into a rental boom very soon.
Yeah,
I think we'll get rental growth in Melbourne. It's been compressed because of COVID. It's the city that has been affected the most of people not travelling from overseas. Melbourne has got the largest university destination population for Australia, and also we have had the hardest time. We, not me, you, and your compadres.
He's trying to get on the sympathy train here. It's unbelievable. Sitting in the Gold Coast going, how's lockdown, buddy?
How's lockdown, mate? You and your lot. Haven't won a trick when it comes to the lockdowns. And so that's been, really tough. And, we manage over 400 properties in Melbourne, and certainly been the most challenging to work with the tenants and the most challenging to work with the owners.
It's almost the reverse of 22 years ago, because only if it stays low enough for long enough.
Yeah.
And because if it does, then the reason that Macquarie's HQ was up in Queensland then was because rents were cheap.
Yes.
So they could pay less for their employees, get a lot more talent. And so that would, if it stays low enough for long enough and promotes companies to re-put their head offices down there, and it's a possibility, then you're looking at that real change in dynamics where you might end up with some of the big companies actually relocating from Brizzy back down to Melbourne, and then so Brisbane's Melbourne, Melbourne's Brisbane, and who would have thought
the other way around?
Yeah,
and I reckon what might happen is Melbourne will go aggressively in employment, because that might make sense dollars and cents wise. And there's some big buildings there. There's some good expansion opportunities for existing businesses down there. It's got amazing infrastructure. It's a very livable city.
Yep.
I heard that Melbourne...
Number 7 now.
Yeah, well, it went down a few ranks, but it ended up putting its hat in the ring for the most, the most livable street in the world or something, and that ended up in Collingwood. It was funny anyway, but Melbourne's always a good city to go to, and people love being there. So interestingly, number one highest rental yields in Australia, Canberra at 630 average.
Wow.
Now that's grown 10% year over year and 5% the last quarter. The biggest growth has been number 2, Darwin at 20% rental growth in the last year on year, and 7% in the last quarter alone. 7% growth. And then we go around to number 3, which Brisbane, 12% and 2%. So, at the end of the day, there's some really nice growth from a rental point of view. Actually, I missed out Perth there.
Nobody cares.
No one cares. No, they do care about Perth.
No, I'm just joking. We love our gang over there. Geez, I tell you what, your minister is a hard ass. I can tell you. As soon as anybody gets COVID, he just gets on the television and belts them. It's unbelievable.
But Perth is number 5 in the weekly rent, but it was actually number 1 year-on-year growth, which was 21%. In the last year.
Well,
now,
it got smashed though, didn't it?
Yeah, and this is the thing. And this is what I tell everyone all the time. Like, gang, you guys hear me say this all the time. Now, it's the media doing a snapshot. It was number 1 in growth, for the last year. Well, that's off the back of being punished for 10 years.
Yeah, but when you do a search in Google for statistics, it just shows you the most recent.
Yeah.
So these journalists don't seem to be able to get to page 2 of Google.
No.
I think they're just quoting the most recent statistics.
Oh, yeah, I tell you. Yeah.
Because it's always sensational. Whenever you look at an isolated year, it's always sensational.
Yeah.
You've just got to look at it over time and then everything smooths out.
That's it. Well, Nate reckons Melbourne can't be number 1 forever, Andy. And, the dream has come to an end. It'll come back. And
Right.
Sonia, cheers to you. Happy Wealth, Wine and Wisdom Friday. But, mate, that's the stuff in the news over in my neck of the woods. Some interesting conflicting data, as there always is in the news. One article is positive, one's negative. One's up and one's down. But the share market ain't much different in your neck of the woods in the equities world.
Well, yeah, it's a bubble today because it's down 69 points.
Oh, the bubble's burst, has it?
Bubbles burst today, apparently. I literally, I was scrolling through, and I'm giving up on news. Like on the weekend,
I only look at it to get articles for Wealth, Wine and Wisdom.
So I haven't been doing my morning routine for a little while. You can probably see I'm a little bit chunky, but that's generally where I watch my Bloomberg. But I started filtering through the Fin Review, and I read it on the weekend. I had my first day where I just grabbed the newspaper, crisp, sat down with a coffee, spent the whole day, then went from the coffee to a tea, and just spent the whole day just digesting bullshit. And I got to the end of it. I said, I can't do this again. I used to love sitting down and reading the paper, and it is just garbage in there. And then I got online and I started scrolling through. And if you scroll through the Financial Review, that was my press, it's literally bubble. Trend is going up. Bubble. Market's crashing. Bubble. Like, literally, you're just scrolling like this, and it just contradicts itself within about 3 scrolls of the page.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to do with the fact that our attention spans are really short now. And they talk about it now, not page stopping, but they talk about it as thumb stopping. So you're scrolling through, and whatever catches your eye and stops you from scrolling.
Yeah, you're quick on the thumbs, and away you go.
Read 2 words, and you're an expert. That's it. And
you only need the headlines, Andy.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, it's booming, it's busting. So, what's in the news? No, recently I've just been following what's happening in New South Wales, because Melbourne, we were the sort of the poor cousin, and it was only happening to Melbourne. But there's some real. I find the New South Wales one interesting now, and I don't want to scare the New South Wales men and women out there. And I feel for you. We know what it's like, so reach out. One thing that you can do is watch Wealth, Wine and Wisdom on a Friday. That tends to help a lot of people. But a big shout out to everyone in New South Wales, because it's a nightmare going through it, and we do feel for you. But that's now the second largest commercial city that is going through what I think might be a sustained lockdown. Like, there were 42 cases today, 20 of them were out in the population, so it wasn't controlled, which means that they could hit the 100 numbers, which takes them into where Victoria was. Hopefully it's not. They might have just got it in time. But watching this because Frydenberg came straight out, no JobKeeper. And fundamentally, I don't believe that can be the case. They have to bring out some sort of stimulus if they're going to shut down an entire city, especially Sydney, for a month. Like, you've got to bring something out.
Yeah.
And even legally, then I'm not even sure where the ground sits. I remember researching it when Melbourne went through it, as to whether they're allowed to do it, and they've granted themselves special powers. But watching that with a keen eye, because if you shut down that, and you've shut down Melbourne for a substantial period of time, it's got to have a flow-on effect. It absolutely has to have a flow-on effect. To what extent, I don't know yet, but I'm watching it keen.
Well, it's interesting. I think about that, folks. You guys think about it too in the world of real estate. Queensland has been fueled certainly by Southern, and it would be, 1 in 3 would be someone from Victoria purchasing up here.
Yeah.
So interesting. I wonder. This is the thought of critical thinking in this sort of space. It's like if something happens, what else might happen? What would the knock-on effect? History is a great mimic, is one of your lines. I like it. I love it. It doesn't always repeat exactly, but it tends to have some similarities.
Yeah.
I wonder if that would then, unlock Sydney in a way. I was talking to a young fellow just the other day. He works for me. He's considering a family home, and he's, in his mid-30s. It's $2 million for something that I remember being able to buy for 400 grand. And so long ago.
And no wage inflation.
No. There's been no wage inflation for, 8 years? Yeah. So insane stuff in that sort of, and if that city comes to a bit of a grind.
Which you could see it do. You could easily see it do, because now that whole work from home dynamic is now, it's expected. So that's got to start to change. And so you start to think about this, and people get piss pot tired of these lockdowns, and they get really frustrated really quickly. And it's tough. Psychologically, it's tough. If I could have picked up my family, and logistically, that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because they're all pretty heavy. No, just joking. Well, I love you, but no, but if I could have picked everybody up and moved them to Queensland, I probably would have done it. But logistically, it was quite difficult.
If you could wave a magic wand and then go, but that's it, I've had enough.
If I was the main breadwinner of the family, my partner didn't have a substantial job, and maybe one kid, I would have gone.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been around. Yeah. And so that part of the population is quite significant. And even in my circles now, I'm hearing a lot of my mates who are Sydney for life. And Sydney-siders don't talk about coming to Brisbane, right?
No,
they just don't. Right? There's no blue jumpers in the Maroon Sea, right? Because ultimately what ends up happening, if you're a Sydney-sider, you come up to Brisbane, they go, well, if your team's so bloody good, what are you doing up in Queensland? But there's a lot of people starting to think about that, and we're only in week 2 of the lockdown. Yeah. So I'm watching it with interest from a fiscal perspective, from a monetary policy perspective, from a government, from a migration perspective. If this is big, it's going to have significant push-on effects.
Yeah.
And remember, in Sydney, they're used to paying $2 million for a tiny little place.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you come up to Brisbane, you start poking your head around, you go, Jesus, I can have $2 million and I can be on a canal?
Wow, and it's actually 1.5 and you're on the canal and you got 500 in change.
No, it's 2 million. Because when they come up here, it's gone from 1.5 to 2 million.
2 million. Yeah, well, that's it.
How much did you sell your last house for? It's funny. That's exactly how much this one is. Yeah,
perfect. Nate's sort of saying all the way up to far north Queensland, spreading it out as well. And, Michelle was saying, many small business owners, plan to move because the restrictions are it's difficult. Yeah, it's tough. And, you and I have talked about this, a reasonable amount of times, the idea that, it's a kind of a tale of two stories, or a story of two tales, or whatever the saying is.
Let's just crush every type of colloquial saying that we possibly can.
There's two things at once. I don't know how to
bird catches the mouse.
But, it's like on one hand, it's tough and it's hard for a certain set of people. And on the other hand, there's, you and I know people in business and in careers having the best years of their commercial lives. Yep. So there's this like these two polar opposites. It's feast or famine, and it's not great, and to be honest, it's not great either to think both of those are going to last forever. But, at the moment, this is where these kind of experiences are, which is not so great.
Yeah.
And probably leads perfectly into what we wanted to have the subject in about tonight, which is, risk and life insurance. There's never been such a more poignant moment in history to sort of understand planning risk and shit that's out of your control.
Yeah.
It's like far out. Let's have the world's worst pandemic, or the world's worst reaction to the pandemic, a pandemic of some description economically. The impact worldwide has just been insane, to say the least. maybe that's a good place for us to start and say, well, where do we start with risk and life insurance and those sorts of things? I had a question the other day, which is why I got you on the coffee chat. One of my clients in the world of property borrowing money, saying, I'm borrowing many millions. What type of insurance should I have? Should I life insurance, TPD, whatever it is? Should I cover it all? Blah blah blah. But it's a big question, and maybe we should sink our teeth into it for the rest of tonight, Andy. As we go, because it's a good segue.
So if you got questions, guys, whack them in the chat, because some way somehow we'll start to answer them either while I'm going through or Charles Dickens.
There you go.
I misread that. I thought Shay went, it's a tale of two stories, dickhead. that's my dyslexia play.
Tale of two cities. Thank you, my love. You are always there to catch my faux pas. And I think you might be right, Sonia. I think I need to have another drink. It might loosen me up a little. It's kind of like playing pool. If you have a bit too much, you don't play very well.
This could be a long night. Let's just say that. Had the questions coming through as much as you can, because it's great for me, because it'll give me more data on in regards of what you guys need. And it is a big topic. Like, it's actually huge. People don't like to address it because it's about death. So I'm just going to ask permission from everybody right now to be able to have a conversation and be quite lighthearted with it. And so I'm not trying to push buttons, but even with my clients, when I have these conversations, I like to try and take them to a comical kind of area. But it's a balance. You got to be sort of comical but then serious. And so I'll give you the tools that we use to go through, the questions of how much, what types, all of those sorts of things. But it's a massive topic.
That's good. Well, we've got at least 20 minutes, Andy, to sort of sink our teeth into it. So we should get ourselves started. Do you need to share your screen? Just make sure you're connected over there.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I'm going to start it as far as the conversation's concerned. Because I think this part is going to be key. There's some talk about bloody regulators and teenage boys, right? There has been so much legislation that's been dropped in and around the financial advisory circle since the Royal Banking inquiry, and it was all because there was some pretty uncouth stuff that was happening in and around the market, and a lot of it was allegedly the banks. There we go. Lawyers have gotten into me, Jace. Allegedly. And so the problem is that this is playing out poorly for clients because it's increased the cost of advice exponentially.
Yeah.
And they just had the life insurance reform, which in my view was I believe, is a slight conspiracy theory. I believe because interest rates were dropping and the insurance companies, they have to survive. They have to make money. But they have to have money on deposit so that they're liquid. So if they have large claims, they can pay it out.
Yeah.
So as a result, interest rates dropping, the cost of insurance goes up, right? And so then they started attacking advisors and the advice world. And so they've just, the Life Insurance Act framework has now made it even more difficult to give advice. So the tip here is probably go out and start to get the advice sooner rather than later, because the cost will probably go up before it goes down. In order to get this stuff. But the other side is to be, buyer beware, because insurance ain't insurance. It's a lot of the group policies that you go out and you get with your industry super funds or other types of group policies, so group superannuation schemes, that default cover that you naturally get when you go in. What actually happens is that your amount actually goes down over time. So you might pay a fixed premium, but your insurance level actually diminishes as you get older, right? So it's actually the reverse of how retail insurance works.
In those industry policies.
A lot of them.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So you might have $500,000 today, but when you turn 50, that drops to 170 or 120. And then when you get into the claim period of time, and perhaps that's where I'll start the conversation, when you get into the claim period of time, which is the time of the highest risk, you've got the least amount of money. So if you share the screen here, I'll take you through what I'm talking about. So maybe we'll start off with the cost of insurance. And this literally straight out of presentations that I work with my clients. So what I use this as an illustration for is level premiums. They're generally more expensive. So premiums are the cost of the policy, whether it be life insurance, whether it be income protection, whatever. Level premiums are pretty much what they say, is you pay more initially, but they will remain reasonably level over time, unless there's major price adjustments. But then you've got your other types of policies, and I'll actually put on the one before, or the one after, or that one. So stepped policies are what they say, is that they go up over time. And so what happens is they're going up in line with your risk profile. So insurance companies are just actuaries. They just look at all of the life statistics of mortality tables, like what a great job to have. What do you do? I calculate when people are going to die.
So, but how do you know which one's which? Is it very clear in the paperwork, like this one or this one, or look, that's where you need someone who knows what they're doing?
Nobody seems to know what they've got. Like in my experience, when you ask somebody what sort of policy have you got, they go, I think
I don't know. Yeah,
I think I'm insured for, that's the problem. I think I'm insured for $1 million.
Yeah,
but that's not the right response.
Mm.
The right response, and this will give you an idea as to where we're going to go. The right response is, I know that if I pass away, my house is paid out, and the kids have got money for the next 18 years. And if there's something medical that's going to happen, I've got about $500,000 to renovate the house in order to compensate. That's the right response to the question, how much insurance have you got? Not a sum. Like the sum doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything. And this, like the right question gives you the best answer, right? Like this is the stuff that we learn in life. It's like, the quality of your life ends up being the quality of the questions you can ask yourself,
Absolutely,
in this sort of space. Yeah.
And no more so in here.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing, is that even though it's quite numerical, you've got to stay off the numbers, and you've got to go to the reason why.
Yeah.
Why do you have it? Why do you want it? Because insurance is purely just a game of, there's a risk of me becoming long-term sick, disabled, or dead.
And 2 out of 3 of those, 3 out of 3 of those, you're not earning very well. Your earning capacity is diminished either significantly or completely.
Most of the time,
yeah.
Right? So it's a matter of going, well, those events one of them happens to every single one of us. It's just a matter of when is it going to happen? And we then need to start to go, well, there's a probability of all of these things happening. How much am I willing to pay in order to financially take the risk away? Yeah. And that's all that it is. It's not any more complex than that. It's how much risk am I willing to wear, and how much risk am I willing to pay to get rid of?
And I'm sure there must be some zone. There must be some zone where it's kind of like, that's too much, and kind of there must be this zone where you go, well, if it's 40 grand a year, well, maybe that's a bit rich. I could do something else, and I could self-insure, and I'm thinking outside my head. Or if it's 10 grand a year, or 5 grand a year, or 3 grand a year, well, fuck, that's a no-brainer. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and you don't know. You don't know as an individual without someone with experience, or someone to ask you some decent questions and kind of help you thrash it out.
I reckon by the end of this conversation, we'll have questions.
Yeah.
But it does get technical.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, insurance ain't insurance. And if you focus too much on price, then what'll end up happening is you get a shit policy, and you'll be fine until you're not.
Yeah. Well, that's it. There's nothing wrong with it until there is. Like, that's what I say, with finance. It's cross securitization. There's no problems with it until they fucking is.
No worries. No, they're all in the same. They're all together.
No worries.
Together.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get the loan.
I've got a professional pack. I've got a manager who looks after my account. That's good.
Oh, and my credit card links to my loan account, links to everything. So, it's great.
We do have a question up there, and Kailash is asking about sort of income protection for business owners, and I'm sure these questions will have some similar. That'd be more key man stuff, like because it is.
And look, that question that you've asked in regards to business owners is one of the trickiest.
Yeah,
and so you've asked that question, you're probably looking at it. One of the most important terms that a business owner needs to evaluate when getting income protection is you need to look at the ongoing income offset clause. Now, the reason why that's so important, and so we've almost stopped doing income protection for a lot of clients who have successful businesses, which have ongoing income in their business.
So the business can continue to pay them, yeah, because it's not worth it. Yep.
And we key person policies in the business, so that if they die, pass away, sick, suffer a cancer event, then they're covered. And then that just puts somebody in the business to run it like they would. And the rationale behind many of these conversations is that a lot of the policies have ongoing income offset clauses, which basically says, Jace, yes, I'll insure you for $15,000 a month, no problem, right? But we're going to take out the distributions of your business. So if your business is still profitable and could be distributing to you, then we're going to offset that income that you're earning from your business.
What?
And so you might, out of that $15,000, you might get $2,000 to top it up, right? So because it'll be maximum of 75% of your pre-disability income. And they'll say, well, there's still, $1 million worth of profit in the business. So you've got your income from the business not paying the policy. Now, that's why you've really got to be careful with income protection policies in business. I've seen business owners have these policies and they're like, no, Andy, I'm covered. And ask one question, does it have an ongoing income offset clause?
Yeah.
They go, a what?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, go and ask.
And find out.
Because they've changed it. You can't get agreed value policies anymore. If you don't know what it is, doesn't matter because you can't get them anymore.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant now. So you can't. But so whoever asks that question, whether they've got an ongoing income offset clause, because it's pretty important when it comes to business owners and insurance, because it's a pretty bitter pill to swallow when it comes to time to claim. And all of a sudden they go, well, hang on, that business is doing well, so no money for you. And you're sitting there going, well, hang on, boss. I've paid $50,000 worth of premiums over the last 5 or 6 years for this policy, and now you're saying I can't get paid. And they go, well, the business is good. Like, hang on, that's not what I paid for. Oh, but it's here.
That's not there.
So like that's complex. We've dove in on the complex side of the equation, but the first thing that you need to know when it comes to insurance is you've got stepped or level premiums, right? So your cost of insurance is either going to go up as you get older, which is stepped. And the problem with that is it's like a hockey stick curve. It starts low and then it just skyrockets. It goes like a rocket in the end. I think it's actually going backwards in time, but and costing you more retrospectively. Yeah. It really does. You can have those policies, those step policies, if you plan to self-insure. Yeah. Now, self-insurance is a thing. Yeah. But I hear a lot of people go, "I'm self-insured," and it's gone. I said, "For how much?" They're like, yeah. So step premiums will work if you've got a plan to self-insure, and then as you get older, you decrease the level of cover as it becomes more expensive. So that's game one for me. Yeah. If you really want to get laser with it and you know absolutely that you're going to be able to bring down the risk and self-insure, then you can take that game. You and I both know is that most wealth games have a few knocks along the way, and it doesn't always go linear point A to point B. So stepped premiums, if you need them for a long time, beware because they're going to skyrocket. And the next chart, this is actually a real live example, just without the costings in there, of one of a client that came to us with stepped premiums. And here's the thing, is that at that point in time, it's the highest probability of claim. So with stepped premiums, if you're going to own it for a long period of time, what ends up happening is as you start to get sick, and it may be you've got life insurance, you end up with cancer, and it's only a matter of time, and that policy is going by 20% every year, and you're fighting cancer, and you know that you're just kicking the can down the road. As I said, it's a horrible conversation, but it's a reality. You keep paying that, and it goes $20,000, then it goes $30,000, then it's $40,000 a year, and it's like, I can't continue to pay this, but you're not going to be around much longer. And that's a horrific position to be in. Yeah. So stepped premiums, if you know a definitive amount of time, it's a short-term game, then they can be incredibly good. They can be incredibly bad and torturous to have if you're going to need the policy for a long term. So step premiums, you've got to have a plan. If you don't know what the plan is, or young enough, then locking in the level can be a really good idea. Because ultimately, yes, you're going to pay more in the beginning, but that policy will not skyrocket. It will go up as the book reprice over time, but it shouldn't be that frequently. But you will pay a pretty stable amount, and it will go to the end of the policy.
Yeah.
Right, which means that it will always be affordable. So if you don't know whether you're going to be able to self-insure, you don't know whether you're going to be able, or you don't have a strategy to insure, because that a lot of people don't.
So let me ask you this one about a level premium then. So can you? So you and I talked about this. My eldest is 18 now, and so we talked about
Love this conversation.
Yeah. So my okay, I think Andy, my advisor. I think it's a good idea that I can start him on a level premium now earlier, and it'll be a gift from me to. But over time, how does it change? How does he add things in? How do you pay the bit more and add in from 100 to 500 to $1 million or whatever cover? Well, how does that work?
So probably a good way to address that is to come back and go, what types of policies are there?
Yeah.
Standard. You've got income protection.
Yep.
Hard to set in stone from a young age because your income's going to go up.
Yep.
And you can only ever insure for about 75% of your pre-disability income. So if you're earning $500 a week, and you insure for that, in 10 years' time, you're going to be earning more than that, right?
Yep.
So income protection is tough to set for the kids when they're young. But life and TPD, so life insurance is if you're, ironically enough, if you die, it's a lump sum that pays out. TPD is total and permanent disablement. Now, TPD, it's kind of the worst case scenario in so many ways. But if you lock that in early, again, if you're totally and permanently disabled and you've got own occupation and you've got any occupation. Any occupation basically means it's a full disability event.
Yep.
2 legs, 2 arms, go blind.
Yep.
Like it's a significant event. But you've also got the own occupation, which means that you can't do what you do.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a brickie and something happens and you can no longer lay bricks, as a result of, it could be something like that, really bad carpal tunnel syndrome, gongs you out, then potentially that TPD claim, own occupation, will pay out. More expensive, and it's part in, part out of super. That's another lump sum. So you pay a premium, life and TPD, the lump sum pays out generally in one hit, bang, you covered. Then there's trauma or crisis insurance. And trauma and crisis insurance is probably the one that we all need, but nobody gets. Because it's the least attractive, it holds the least amount of deductions, it has no deduction, right? If you claim a deduction for it, you'll pay capital gains tax on the return.
Really?
So no deductions. It can't be in super, or it can be in super, but there's no time of release. But it's for trauma and crisis conditions, things like heart attack, things like cancer, strokes, the most common medical events for us to happen.
So you can add them later, though. You can
add them later, but here's the key. You can get a life and TPD, and you can get the trauma, and you can lock that in. Because a trauma event, for us males, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? It's if there's 5 of us in the room, 3 of us will have a trauma event before the age of 65.
Wow.
And in my world, I use the example and how I think of it, which isn't how everybody thinks of it, and I've got to be careful here. You've got to speak to your advisors about it. But the way that I think about it is the Jared Ruffhead story. And for those of you who don't know the Jared Ruffhead story, if you've got questions, guys, pepper the chat as we're going through here. The Jared Ruffhead story is a Hawthorn football player, stage 3 melanoma, I think it was, on his lip. Now, the odds on him actually recovering from that at that point in time were less than 20%. Then it metastasized, got into different parts of his body. The odds went down to about 15%. Now, I don't know exactly what happened, but they flew him out overseas to get the best treatment in the world. He came back, went into remission, won the grand final with Hawthorn as their captain the next year. True story. And so the way that I look at it is that if you have a trauma event, which is it's almost a probability, right, that you're going to have it. If I get a cancer, I literally want to be able to go, and I've got kids, I want to go wherever I need to go in the world to get rid of whatever is inside me.
Yeah.
I'm doing it, and I'm doing it today, and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And so the lengths of that, you could go to $1 million because you would be able to go to Europe and get the best treatment. Might be $100,000 so you can take time off work and get the best treatment in Melbourne or Australia, and or at least fund part of that. So the beauty about that for kids, it's harder for them to tangibly pay, and it's usually the parents who pay for it. But if you can lock that in when your kid's like 18, because then they have a policy that they can afford for life, which is more probable that they will get a payout from than any other policy, and it's the most likely to help them.
Yeah, that makes sense. A few of you guys have said a little bit blurry here. Yeah, unfortunately, when it rains in the Gold Coast, go figure that the internet gets rubbish. I don't know what's going on here. It's meant to be okay, but folks, sorry about that. I can see here on the network connectivity, I've got a 4 out of 10. So it is rubbish at our end. We're sorry about that. Hopefully you guys can stick with us. But if it absolutely craps itself, we might circle around and have another shot at it, Andy. But it's good info, that's for sure. So hopefully it gets a little bit better, folks. It does chop and change, unfortunately, but it could be my kids down there in the house downloading things on Minecraft. You never know. No one is on the internet in the house either. I don't think that's the truth, Shane. Are you covering up for the kids, my love? Anyway, let's keep it rolling.
So I reckon it's a great tip. I reckon everyone should chat with their advisors about their kids, because if you can afford to do it and you can get those policies for them early, it can save lives. And it is the most expensive policy, but it is the highest probability that you'll claim on.
Well, let me ask you this one, and it's probably it lands close to home right now for me. My dad's not so well. And I take care of my family, and my parents live with us in our Witten compound here. We got plenty of room and got a second house and everything. It's all comfortable, but we have to pay for it. Like that, it comes out of my dollars and cents. And thankfully, I've got a couple of bucks to be able to do that. Let's say that something happens. Just because your kids turn 18, 19, or 20 or 30. Doesn't mean you stop caring as a parent. Let's say you had one of your children have some, event. Often your parents end up looking after their children as 100%. Well. In that case, again, not only looking after your own kids, but also, potentially, you don't want to think about it, but being able to fund the capacity if something happened to your own children in a way, that you weren't able to take care of yourself. Yeah.
And doing it in this fashion is potentially an extraordinarily cheap way of doing it. So, mate, how much is it? You mightn't know this. So let's see if you do. But for you at home, what I want you to do is I want you to write down, so grab a pen and a bit of paper. And if you don't, I want you just to visually think about it. Or you can put it in the chat, actually. Let's see if we can light up the chat, all right? So what I'd love for you to be able to tell me is... so firstly, I just want you to answer a yes or no. Is your car insured? So pop it into the chat if it's a yes or a no.
Give it short answers, Andy. Give it short.
Yes or no. Right. And the next one is how much excess on your car. And if you don't know, say don't know. And let's just start.
Just put DN.
Yeah,
don't know.
DN, don't know. You don't have to put the dollar signs in there, but because this, if it works, if we get enough people participating, you're going to start to see what's happening. So yes. No, we've got in the Nate. Don't insure the car. Hopefully you've got third party, mate, because you don't want to hit a Rolls Royce like Tom Cruise out of, not Tom Cruise. What's the little bloke's name out of Back to the Future? Doesn't matter. J Fox, yes, ruined his life in Back to the Future #2. About 600-ish. All right, so here's the thing, is you all know your excess of your cars, right? And you all know how much you're actually paying for if there is an accident. Most of us can know what those figures are, but the fact is you've insured the car, and the probability of you having a crash is slightly higher than what it is of having one of these medical events. But here's the thing, the car's only worth $50,000, $60,000, $100,000. Maybe it's a $200,000 car or something like that. How much do you reckon a person's worth?
Whew, when you put it in that way, Andy. Yeah, well, that's it. And also millions.
So when you can get your kids in young, you can actually get insurance for around about the same cover of what a car insurance policy would cost you. if you get them in earlier. And here's the other thing.
Give it some dollar terms. Like, I know you can't give a quote or anything. This is not a quote, gang, but are we talking grand? Are we talking 10 grand for the year? Are we talking, what are we talking?
I can give you a scenario that we did.
Give us a scenario,
with ballpark numbers.
Dollars.
Close to $2 million worth of life and TPD, a $5,000 trauma policy, and it was less than $1,500 a year.
That's amazing.
And a lot of it was paid for via super.
Yeah.
And $500,000 a lot of right for your average Joe. But I didn't suggest that amount. They just said, nah, it makes absolute total sense. Bang it in for that.
Yeah.
Because I think the amount was, and don't quote me because I can't quite remember it, but might have been $300 a year, $400 a year for the trauma.
Yeah.
So you'd pay that every day of the week. Right?
Yeah.
Because, and here's the other reason, the earlier in life that you get insurance, the less probable of an event has happened that will go out of the insurance policy. So if you end up like me with a bug injury, if I went back to get an income protection or a TPD claim, they'd say shoulder exclusion.
Yeah.
So anything happens with the shoulder, you can't get it. So the younger that you get your policy, medical events have happened to you as well. So the more likely you will be able to get a clean skin policy at what we call clean skin rates. Because if you have some things with the ticker or a bit of cholesterol or blood pressure, then you can get loadings on the policy as well. Yeah. So the earlier that you do it, the better. And if you've got $1 million and then you need two, you just get another policy. Yeah. So you can top that up later on. You just get different policies. And then you've got a cheap policy, which is for the bulk of it. And you can tack on more expensive cover. And then when you pay it down, then when you don't need as much, you just get rid of the more expensive cover. If that makes sense.
Makes sense.
So the earlier you do it, the better.
That's brilliant.
But the thing is, most of us are kind of sitting there going, well, that's good, Andrew, but I'm not 18. Right? So it's like,
okay. Yeah. Well, most of us, like you know, you and me in the room here, you know.
It's like, yeah, mate, thanks for that, but I'm 50 and it sounds like I'm fucked by the sounds of it.
All right. Well, I mean, you know, maybe for the last, 5 or 10 minutes, let's talk around that sort of space. What are the sort of the key takeaways? Because really, at the end of the day, what I'm hearing, which is brilliant, the earlier you can, the better. There's a difference between the stepped and the level. Talk with your advisor about what's appropriate and what you need. It's about those questions.
Yep.
But what about someone who's a bit older, someone who's never sort of taken it that seriously, or someone like me, like Shay and I only insured ourselves and stuff, 3 or 4 years ago, 45 or something, because we were self-insuring through our business values and our ongoing income streams and our property investments and stuff like that. We were like, you know what?
And then somebody came along and rattled the cage a little bit.
And they're like, well, maybe. And I'm like, no, talk to me more. I'm like, oh, all right then. Okay,
You know what? Whenever a business owner comes in who have balked at insurance cover, and look, almost I'd say 90% of the people that I work with have it, because if you're not interested in protecting yourself, I'm not interested in working for you, because I'm the person who's going to clean up the mess afterwards.
That's what happens,
And I'm just... I can't do it. So I prefer to go hard early and kind of go, wills, powers of attorney. It's an absolute, you must have them, or you must agree to get them if you're going to be with me. But I think let's take a step back. The amount of cover, the questions that I'd ask in and around that, and we talked about on the coffee chat, was what would I want life to look like if X, so life event, TPD event, long-term sickness, cancer, whatever the case, happened yesterday. Yeah. What would I want life to look like for whoever's remaining?
Yeah.
And you pretty quickly start to understand, because the answers to this is not dollars.
Yeah.
The answer to this is
a quality of life.
I want the house for my family because I need them to be secure. I want the kids to continue in private school till year 12.
Yeah.
And we had a plan for the family to do X, Y, and Z, and I want that to happen. Those are my non-negotiables, Andy. Those are my non-negotiables in life.
Yeah.
And it's like, then that's easy. It's like, okay, well, there's a multiple of income, and we put a little bit of a calculation and say, well, how much money do we need to invest? An average of 5%. That'll give the kids school fees for the next 18 years. Bang, that's one.
Yeah.
But then whenever I speak to somebody who's had it done right, when I say, how much are you covered for? They go, I'm covered so that my family will have the house, the kids will be able to go to school, and if something happens medically, we'll be able to renovate the house.
Take care of things.
That's the right response, and that should give you all the right pattern to think about. And so back to what we were talking about before, whenever a business owner who has minimized the insurance initially comes in and says, Andy, can we have a chat about that life insurance again? I go, what's gone wrong with the business?
Yeah.
Because we're in, you know what it's like when business is good. As a business owner, you are invincible.
You feel bulletproof.
Your shit doesn't stink. You're like, no, I don't need any of that stuff.
Good, mate. Look at the profits. I'm killing it.
And then something happens on a work site. There might be an incident, and there's somebody outside rattling the cage like that. And you start looking around. You're going, "Oh, this is a bit nasty." Let's or you're out running. And this happened to me just recently. You know, you're out exercising, and all of a sudden it's like, poo. It's like, hang on, that's a bit.
Yeah, what's going on there?
That's a bit nasty.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, you're fucked.
Yeah. Too late then.
When you feel that,
the
the beauty about it is it perpetuates itself. Because I felt and I went, I know I'm covered.
Yeah.
Right. And so I never went to that. Yeah. But I can imagine if I had kids and a big mortgage and I've already got a lot of mouths to feed, but if I wasn't covered, I reckon when that thing went a little bit haywire, I'm fine, by the way. I'm totally fine. It was some sort of a virus. Thanks for the chat that didn't light up. All of you.
No, that was last week, the week before, Andy.
Empathetic human beings out there. Andy's having a tough time, though. But I remember when it happened, I was like, thank God. Like literally one of the first things I thought of is I don't need to worry about that. That's taken care of. And it wasn't I'm covered for this much amount. It's I'm covered so that these things will happen and I'm safe.
Alison asked the question, climbing for me is covered in our policy, Alison. So we had to pay a bit more because I engage in dangerous activities.
And what's classified as dangerous? I reckon fucking, what is it called? Crime writing is going to be a high activity. So they keep loading up these ideas of what's high risk. It's incredible. And that's the other reason to get it done. Before you start jumping out of planes, get it before it's done.
Before it's early. But one of the other things which we've done and we've talked about with my business partner is some insurance that is paid for by the business.
Oh, this is a really good topic.
Then pay out some shares for someone else and pay for the purchase, because the business might be in trouble. The business may not have the money to pay out the other partner.
It never does.
Yeah, it never does. And so my shares are worth something, but right now I don't have the cash and the family's struggling. The business partner who's left behind's like, I feel really bad, but fuck, there's $5 in the bank,
Yeah. And there's a reason why that they say in the business world that the only type of partnership is a sinking ship. Because seriously, there's just so many things that are outside of it. It's hard enough to get along with people you're related to.
Or you choose to marry, or both,
And then, but business goes through all of those emotions.
Yeah.
And so you got to gel. And you and Sammy, good, but I'm sure you've had your
20 years, it's been up and down, around.
And it would have been hairy. I've got some, a number of clients who were good friends when they started business, can't stand each other now.
Yeah.
Like literally hate each other. Work extraordinarily well in business, and this isn't just one. This is multiple.
Yeah.
Business has destroyed their relationship. Yeah. But not the working relationship. Absolute professionals in all of them. But the problem is, and this is what happens is, business owners, we always look at our business going, it's our super. It's not our fucking super.
Not our fucking super. It's not your super. We've told you guys this.
It's not your super. You want the statistics? If you want the statistics right hard right now, the statistics are if you want a business that's over $10 million, you've got 0.2% of actually getting there. Those are the statistics.
0.2%.
0.2%.
Yeah.
Those are the statistics. If you want the $10 million business, so for those of you who are above $10 million, the chances of you getting from a startup to that point in time is 0.2%. So if you are there, kudos to you. For those of you who aren't there, you can be that 0.2%. I'm not saying you're not. I'm just saying work with the odds, right? Like that is the reality. That's the reality for all of us, right? And that's what happens. Don't want to be the naysayer, because we know a lot of people who have gotten there, and we're pretty privileged actually from that perspective.
Mate, we are. We do. We are in a network of business owners who actually want to be good business owners and better and greater business owners, and work on that hard. So we're pretty privileged to that, I think. And, but, our professional experiences have seen train wreck after train wreck after train wreck, in this space,
It is one of the most crushing things that I've seen is people coming, going, oh, you're a small to medium business expert. Yes, we are. Oh, we're good at it. Like I don't say we're experts, but I say, that's our niche. That's what we love to play at. And they go, so this has happened, and I can hear it in their voice as soon as they start speaking. Oh, fucking, just terrible. I've heard too many of them, and I just know because I can hear it. I can hear the voice crack, and it's like, oh fuck, I know what's about to come out. Uber's come into your industry. And that's it. Something's game over. You're on the pension for the rest of your life, and if you got a mortgage, you cactus.
Yeah.
And it's a heartbreaking story for business owners. It ain't your business ain't your super, right? Statistically, they're bad odds to play. Go and take $1 million and put it on black. At the casino. You've got a better odd on that coming up than it is your business being your super. Fair income. Yeah, it's a little bit emotional then, but so where will we get on track? Business partners, sinking ships. So you've got to get past the marriage. You've got to get past all of the arguments. But then you've got twice the chances of something happening to you. If we're in business together and we're in the same business, you're a director, I'm a director, you're 50%, I'm 50%, and I start to have a heart murmur, then you should be shitting yourself. You should be getting very, very close to Mags, right? And understanding what she would be like to work with.
Mags are a good chick. Come on.
Well, you would need her to be, but you haven't seen her in the business environment, mate. She is a ball breaker. But you can't have two chairpersons. You know what I mean? No. And the reason why I say that is that your business partner becomes Magda. Yeah. Your business partner becomes
partners. Yeah.
And their expectation. We're back.
Hey! Oh, the internet dropped out.
You should have seen. He just did 3 shots in 30 seconds. Unbelievable. I've never seen it. I'm just joking. So for business partners, it's in my view, it's key. You've got to have it. And when I have this conversation, 9 times out of 10, it goes like this. Jace, we're in business together, and usually have a business partner sitting with each other. All right. Yesterday, you weren't here anymore. What happens?
Yeah.
And they go, we'll continue on, and you will do all of the heavy lifting of the business. And okay, so who's going to do your job in the business? Well, we'll hire. Yeah. We'll hire them. Okay, so how much you pay them? And 9 times out of 10, it's more than what you're getting paid.
Mate, what happens? Yeah, exactly.
And they go, hang on. So, and then I say, so how are you going to find the extra $20,000 or $30,000 to pay somebody what you'd really pay them to do the work that you're doing? Yeah. And what do you reckon they're going to do? 80% of the job that you, at best, right? They're probably going to do your job 50% as good as you. And then I go, okay, cool. So now the business is okay. What's the expectation of the family? All right. What? Like, well, hang on. You're taking home from the business $200,000 a year to feed everybody over there.
Yeah,
$200K was pretty much ballpark what you were taking home. So how are you going to earn $200K to the family who is doing no work in business for life?
It's not going to happen. This is where it breaks down. Right? If you're not
going to pay them, okay, well, let's pay them out. So vendor finance or something. How much is it worth? We imagine it would be worth. Well, let's just do 5 times income, right? 5 times income, it's worth $1 million. Where are you going to get $1 million from? Your house is mortgaged to the hill. And they're like,
It's not going to happen.
I don't know what the fucking answer is.
Yeah.
And the answer is keep in policy, life TPD.
Yeah.
And we go, and again, Russell Collins taught me this, and I'm probably just slaughter his beautiful phrase, but it's better to have the wrong amount for the right reason
than
no amount for the wrong reason.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better to agree on a value for the business and just go, the business is worth $1 million.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
Insure it for $1 million. And if it was worth 2, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The family's paid out, the policy paid out. So what the policy does is the policy buys the shares in the business. So it literally buys you out and pays out.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had this chat with my business partner and our kids, and we just said, listen, guys, like something happened to us, like the shares are going to be sold, and you're going to get some money. We're not like you're not going to enter the business. Like that's not going to happen, because for us that's not a good idea. So I don't want that for Sam. I don't want that for my business partner. You know what I mean? Like, no way would I want a psycho family like how just bearing down on him. It's just like insane.
Did you just call your family psychos? I reckon Shay is going to be lighting up on this in a moment. But here's the thing. So the psychology of all of this, and this is one of the most important reasons why you need a total an estate and family protection plan. Well, not anything else, but because what happens when a partner passes away? Yeah. What happens here? Mate, stress. I mean, cortisol. Yeah. What happens when cortisol pumps through the system?
Very bad decision making.
Emotionally, the mammalian brain shuts down. Gone. The neocortex shuts down. You become emotionally inept and you become stupid. Yeah. And that's why people in estates hear all these estate battles, and you're like, I don't know what happened. They were all fine. And then they got emotional, got stressed, got stupid, and emotionally inept, and they're trying to make financial decisions. The lawyers are sitting there going,
the lawyers are the only ones who make money out of those sorts of problems.
But we're incapable. So a good plan looks like not just I have insurance and I have a will. A good plan actually is like a standard operating procedure that says this is how it.
And a good plan is in advance.
Yes.
Right? Like, this is the thing, like thinking this stuff through. So you're like, okay, what if something happens to me? Is there some money? Powers of attorneys, wills. So insurances, power of attorney, wills, business protection insurance. Key man, like, so key man, key woman, key person, buyer. Yep. So there's a number of things that I think and they're so important things, and the question comes, well, how do I pay for them? How do I pay for this stuff? Well, that's where a good advisor comes in and goes, well, the super can pay for one bit. You might have to pay for that bit yourself, but the business could pay for this bit. Yep. And put that strategy. I think it's so vital and so important. Again, I think we actually undercooked it with time and stuff for tonight on wisdom, Eddie. Like because it's such a big topic.
I guess to round it off is everyone always says that there's not enough, but there's never been a person who I've taken dough off the plate to do things the right way.
Yeah. And
what I mean by that is money. I always say money is like a gas, right? It expands to fill the room that it's given. Right? Money, that is how people do money. You make more, you spend more.
Yeah.
That's just
it happens in advance too. Like, I'm getting a dividend or I'm getting a pay rise, and then all of a sudden, the money's been, you haven't even got it yet. Like,
I've had a few of those conversations recently. So, hey, let's just slow down. Let's earn it first.
Slow down.
Earn it first.
Let's get it in the bank first.
Just see it in there. Just see it in there. Just for a couple of minutes. Just let me look at it. Let me marvel in it. But every time we take some money, and this happens in all walks of life, businesses especially, right? You go, well, businesses just run and they spend money all the time. They go, well, let's prepay tax. Well, I don't have the money. Well, if you don't have the money, you're screwed. Yeah. That's just true. It may not be sure, May not be next year. If you run the business,
it'll be the third or the fourth year.
Something's going to just come and hit you.
You and I've seen this so many times. You're 2, 3, 4 years behind in your taxes. Like the boogeyman's chasing you. It's coming. Like it's behind you.
And people start deluding themselves into believing that it's going to change.
Yeah.
But you take, and here's the thing, if you take money off the table and strategically put it for taxes, for future expenses, for protection, you take it off the table, then you automatically adjust and live or operate the business with what's left. Because that money is still the gas. Yeah. Don't worry, you'll still find ways to make it disappear, but there's just less of it that's going to disappear, and the other stuff is taken off the table.
Yeah.
And when I've never had anybody who, when you do that, their life falls apart. And it's the same thing with savings, because all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't have any spare cash flow. And you're like, oh, so what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to buy a house. A principal place of residence? Yeah. How are you going to afford that? We'll just make it work. And it goes, it's a matter of your priorities.
But I mean, you and I talked about this before, like, you know, the idea, Mike Calvert's wrote that book, Profit First, as for business owners. That's brilliant. If you read that book, grab that book, gang, Profit First.
There is another one that's going to be coming out that will blow it away.
Blow it away.
We'll let you know.
It might be written by us too. Yes, it's coming, gang. It's coming.
Oh, you just said that live now. So, that's it. We're going to have to make sure that
we'll have to do the book. But it's the idea. You did right. Take the money, pay yourself first, look after yourself first, invest in yourself first, whatever version of first needs to be. Insurances, this, that, now that you're super, this, like, you and I talk about this all the time. Take it off the table first. Don't let it land in your bank account or your lap, because you fucking spend it. You're little to deal, and we all do it.
And that's why all the direct debits. Here's a nugget for you, which I don't know if I remember telling clients, which is hopefully not too many of you listening, but this is a real hack, right? Whenever your pay goes in, and even as a business owner, your pay should go in somewhere at some point in time. Have all of the direct debits for all of your savings and everything, your mortgage and all that stuff. Have all that go out literally the day after the money hits, because it gives you less time to delude yourself into thinking that there's more money in there.
I'm killing it.
Because psychologically, you just spend it. You look at it and it's gone.
Gone. Well, mate, we've had a good chat tonight. It's been about an hour and a bit, hour and 20 minutes in, and unfortunately, team, the old internet connection tonight has defeated us. We couldn't change that one, so I hope it doesn't mean too bad. But we will certainly continue this topic. I think it's a good topic.
We've got the questions. We have seen them pop through. We know that there's problems with the internet. So we'll do either Wealth Coffee chats. We'll tag you in the Wealth Coffee chats if they're going on, just so that we make sure to deliver on the promise of answering the questions as they come through. But also let us know, because it's a massive topic and it's one that nobody talks about because it's not fun. But it is important. So they always say that don't about religion, wealth, and politics, and Jason,
money. That's what we talk about.
That's what we talk about. That's absolutely. I reckon we should talk about all of them
all the time, and we talk about one sometimes. Mate, there you go.
So we will get to questions.
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, gang. We might leave it there. The internet's defeated us tonight, but we will be back during the week. Friday, Wealth Coffee Chats. Again, Friday next week, Wealth, Wine and Wisdom. We shall do it again, and we'll answer your questions. Anything that you want, chuck it in the chat. Always good to hang out with you guys. It's been awesome to hang out.
Right, how good's it been?
In actual physicality. I think we should do this more often, and we should make sure we make a habit of it. So thanks, everyone. Good to see you guys, and cheers. As to you.
And it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Good night.